Here.
Division 6, Audrey Miller. Here. Division 5, Robert Harris.
Present.
Division 4, Justin Lane.
Here.
Division 3, Frank Donato.
Here.
Division 2, Keith Dias.
Here.
Division 1, Joyce Orson.
Here. Thank you, Madam President. Item number 4, adoption of agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call.
Oh.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot roll call vote. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you. Gary Van Dam.
Yes.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Harris.
Yes.
Justin Lane.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes.
Shelley Sorsico.
Yes. Thank you. Item number 5, public comments and period open to the public. Is there anybody that wishes to address the board at this time? Seeing none. Moving on to item number 6, new business, which we have none. Item 7, the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam.
Yes.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Harris.
Yes.
Justin Lane.
Yes.
Frank Donato. Keith Dias.
Yes.
Shelley Sorsico.
Thank you. Item number 8, items for consideration and possible action. Item 8A, Finance Committee, Director Donato.
Thank you. Yesterday, the Finance Committee met, and got item 8A, 1-year consideration of possible action on awarding a contract for preparation of emergency response plan. And I guess this is.
We will, yes, we will have Justin Dulce provide our report to the board.
Okay.
Good evening, President Sorswell, members of the board. Included in your packet is a staff report regarding this item, which is to hire an emergency planning expert to write a federal and state compliant emergency response plan for the agency. This plan will outline the responsibilities of agency staff in responding to emergencies, identify risks facing the agency, and make recommendations on a layout and equipment for establishing an emergency operations center. This plan will be compliant with FEMA and state guidelines so that the agency would be eligible for reimbursement in the event of an emergency if the expenses were made. In October 2018, for some background, the America's Water Infrastructure Act was passed and adopted, and that requires all water utilities to prepare a risk assessment and emergency response plan. The risk assessment is due by March 31st, 2020, and emergency response plan 6 months later at the end of September. Staff received 3 proposals from qualified consultants, and after reviewing these proposals, staff is making a recommendation to go with R.E. Patterson and Associates, who we located through California Special Districts Association. The other 2 proposals were from Preparative Consulting, who we had a recommendation from the city of Palmdale to reach out to them. Their cost was $116,000 for the plan, training, and exercise. MLC and Associates was the person who wrote the City of Lancaster Emergency Response Plan. Their cost was a total of $160,000 for the plan, training, and exercise. And R.E. Patterson and Associates came in at $63,410. So there is a discrepancy there, but that has to do with the level of detail of the training and the exercises that were required. We think at this point it's prudent to go with R.E. Patterson and Associates plan and tackle some of the more extensive training and exercises in future years as we develop our plan. $10,000 was budgeted for this plan in the current fiscal year, but due to the customization of the plan and the additional requirement for the risk assessment imposed by the American Water Infrastructure Act, that cost came in over budget by $53,410. In a separate item for this current fiscal year, we budgeted $200,000 for a local hazard mitigation plan. Some of the effort under this emergency management plan is going to be a duplicate effort for that could go towards the local hazard mitigation plans. That will lower the cost of that effort. So staff is recommending that we transfer $53,410 from the local hazard mitigation plan line item over to the emergency response plan line item, and is recommending that the board authorize the general manager to execute an agreement with R.E. Patterson and Associates for a not to exceed amount of $63,410 to write this emergency plan. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
So I have a question. So who has R.E. Patterson done work for?
R.E. Patterson has worked with some water districts in Northern California. He's done some work with Cal Water. He's done, I think he said he's done 15 or 20 plans for Cal Water since they have districts throughout the state. And he's done work for one of the water districts, Scotts Valley Water District in Northern California. We've reached out to all of his references and everybody's very happy with the work that he's done for them.
Any other questions? Have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the proposal in front of us on item 8A1.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Claudia Miller,
Yes.
Robert Harris,
Yes.
Justin Lane,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dice.
Yes.
Shelley Simpson.
Yes.
Thank you
for
very
your
much.
report
Thank you.
and your hard work on this one. We've gone through a couple different times, and I know that we try to make the best decision possible because this is a very important issue for us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Director Donato.
Yeah, so back to the finance. 8A2, this is consideration of possible action to reimburse the notary public commission for board secretary.
This one we're gonna
12/9/19 to 12/8/23. So
We're
who's gonna
going
take?
to continue this item.
Oh, we are? Okay.
Donato.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Item 8, the Guadalupe Resources and Negotiation Committee. Director Donato.
Okay, we met on this. First item in front of you, 8B1, consideration of possible action on approving the term sheet for the retail water service and imported water supply for the proposed Quail Valley Plan development. So Matt's going to go ahead and give us a presentation of this. Can you first, when you give us these names, Quail Valley, can you give us like the area what we're talking about roughly?
Yeah, we've got a convening Madam President, members of the board. We've got a one slide here that we can. Excuse me, hold on. All right, we got an exhibit up on the screen there to show the location of the proposed development. So this is a new development. It's about 730 lots total, single-family residential lots. It's kind of unique because it straddles both Avek's service area and Palmdale Water District service area. So on the exhibit up on the screen, you can see the red line that's going north-south. That's the Avek EWD boundary line. So Avek is on the west side of that red line, and Palmdale Water District service area is on the east side. You can see Avenue S there, kind of goes east-west. Probably all familiar with where Lake Palmdale is located, just east of 14th Freeway. So as you can see on the exhibit, about 324 lots of this development are within Palmdale Water District service area, and 406 lots fall within the Avek service area. So what triggered this, the need for this term sheet is the developer of this planned single-family development approached both Palmdale Water District and LA County Water Works to see which retail water agency would be best suited to serve the entire project, rather than have the development be served by two separate water retailers. So it's outside the sphere of influence for LA County Water Works, and being that half of it, or roughly half of it, is in Palmdale Water District service area, it made sense to have Palmdale Water District be the retail service provider for the entire project. LA County Water Works was acceptable to those conditions, but then the only thing that we need to work on is this term sheet that you have in front of you this evening between AVAC and Palmdale Water District to make sure it was clear who was providing retail service, since AVAC is not a retail service provider, who would retain their property taxes associated with properties within each of their respective boundaries. So this term sheet specifies that each agency will retain their property taxes collected for properties within each of their boundaries. It also specifies that Palmdale Water District will be responsible for the entire project development as it relates to retail water service, so all of the distribution piping, storage tanks, pump stations needed to provide service to this development would be through Palmdale Water District. AVAC would also be able to collect any applicable water supply or capacity fees for those properties within AVAC service area, so up to 406 lots. And Palmdale would collect their appropriate capacity fees and water supply fees within their development. So both agencies are comfortable with this. Markman's office helped review this and draft it, and staff is recommending that the board approve, as well as the water bank resources and negotiations committee. You happy to answer any questions?
So it's a total of over 700 lots?
Yeah, about 730 lots total.
But we're not using our water.
Excuse me. So, as I mentioned, AVAC will retain the property taxes for those lots within our service area. And our state water contracts are pretty specific with Palmdale Water Districts and AVAC that says our imported water has to be used within our service area, same for theirs. So each year there'll be an exchange component between the two agencies to ensure we're complying with the state water contract.
So do you know how much water, I mean, out of the total 700 lots, we're not supplying all that, so what do you know what?
Yes, so the project developer, the engineering firm, had to do what's called a water supply assessment because it's over 500 lots for the city of Palmdale. And in their calculation, they're estimating about 323 acre feet per year of water demand within AVAC service area. So we'll have to true that up with Palmdale Water District each year for that water supply that's used, import water supply that's used within our service area.
Okay, it sounds like a pretty good exchange. I'll move on board AB1 that we approve. Service agreement, proposed Antelope Valley plan development.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Justin Lane,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes.
Shelley Sorrison.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, okay, I know you're for the second. Second one, we're going to be talking about here is a consideration and action of approving the amended and restated MOU with Valley County Waterworks District 40. But I'd like to make a statement that this would apply to all the water agencies that are within the district that we serve, correct?
Yes, it will apply to all. This is a specific agreement just between AVAC and Waterworks 40. We'll bring back a similar item in the next couple of weeks that it comes from.
So it
It's
covers
everybody else, but it's the intent. It'll be for everyone.
Okay. Okay, Matt, go
All
ahead.
right, good evening again, thank you. As you all may know, the agency worked hard back in 2013 with LA County Waterworks on developing an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, as it relates to new water supply, import water supply, that's necessary for any new developments within LA County Waterworks District 40 service area. So attached in your packet on page 96 is a copy of the current MOU. As mentioned, it was approved back in August of 2013, and it's served its purpose pretty well. It laid out a framework where any new development that came to LA County Waterworks and that needed a will serve letter, a water supply availability letter. Waterworks would require that developer pay a deposit of $10,000 per acre foot. Those funds would be collected by Waterworks and then subsequently transferred to Avek. Avek would go out and try to secure imported water supply to meet the demands for that new development. And then we would true up the actual cost associated with the securing that water supply. So this was before the adjudication. As you know, the adjudication was settled in late 2015. So some things are more certain for LA County Waterworks as it's in regards to their production rights within the Antelope Valley Basin. And also with all the work that Avek has done with water banking programs, our water supply is becoming more reliable and resilient for our customers. So it made sense to amend and restate that 2013 MOU. So what you have on page 94 is the shorter version of an MOU that will replace the 2013 version. And this changes the structure a little bit to where new developments within this LA County Waterworks District 40, Waterworks would set the requirement for any new supply, imported water supply necessary to meet the demands of that development. The developer would then pay an assessment to Avek for the new water supply. So we would have control over setting that new water supply fee and collecting the fees from the development. And then the agency would commit to that amount of water supply in perpetuity for that development within LA County Waterworks. So that's kind of in a nutshell what this MOU provides. It just changes the structure a little bit of setting the fee and who that fee is paid to ensure that the agency has control management of that new water supply and passes that on to LA County Water.
And the new fee would be based on a study that the agency would perform every 5 years to find out what the new water supply market is and be able to utilize those funds to acquire additional water supplies that will be added to the Avek portfolio of imported water supplies outside of just table A water that we have under our existing contract.
Or we could buy groundwater rights too, right?
No, in this particular case, it's for importation of just imported water supplies for paying the cost of importing additional water, not for buying groundwater rights.
Well, I'm confused. I thought it was to ensure additional capacity for future building and development.
Correct.
So we'd be able to commit perpetual water. How do you can never guarantee table A.
No, I'm not saying that we would guarantee table A. What I was referring to is that it's imported water supplies that would be in addition to our table A supplies that we currently have under contract. So it'd be additional water supplies that we would have to acquire. Supplies that we have for the agency, but this particular agreement and the nexus for the fee is the cost of imported water supply in that imported supply market.
Is that for recharge?
No, that would be just for, it could be for recharge if we got the supply, it wasn't needed in that particular year, we could recharge it.
Well, I mean, if we have an opportunity to buy water at a price and be able to recharge it, would that?
It would not prevent us from doing all the normal water management functions that we would do, because all we're doing is committing to provide that water, wherever it comes from. It doesn't matter where it comes from, because the molecules don't matter. It's to make sure that we have sufficient supplies in order to meet that obligation.
So how does this support
One way to think about it is it's a mitigation of demand. So we have a new development, it has new demands on the system. We acquire new water rights that mitigate that demand. We still have all the same management functions that we always do, but we use that new supplies to mitigate the demands of the new impact that's associated with the new development.
And that's what the $10,000 fee is
Or
for.
whatever the fee amount is, will be based on the current market.
The current MOU states $10,000 for resident deposit.
It's actually more than that.
So if somebody comes, so the developer basically, the county tells them to come and see us.
Right.
Let's say it's, you need 100 acre feet of water,
Right.
that's a million, what is that, $1 million? No, $100,000? What is that?
For how many feet?
100 acre feet,
100 feet would be.
Advertise that down.
Yeah.
100, no, 100,000. Okay, so, and then we take that money,
Mhm.
then what is given in return to the builder and D40?
The commitment's given to D40.
And it's going to be D40, the builder can build this development, and Avek uses that money to acquire additional water supplies.
Because keep in mind, the agency doesn't sign will serve letters, that's the retailer's responsibility. So our commitment is to the retail agency for that amount of water supply.
Well, how do we determine that if we haven't already been into a contract on the water? I'm confused a little bit here, because then when we met in the committee, this didn't sound like this when how it was approached to me. So they come to the agency, they give us $100,000, we need 100 acre feet of water. We take their money, but where does the water come from?
The water will come from all of Avek's supplies. In other words, all of our supplies, whether it's table A, banked water, whatever it's from, that's where the water will.
Well, that's what I just said. I said
Yes.
so.
Well, I just want to make sure that it's clear the distinction that the money will be used to add more water into the system.
I understand that part, but I
Okay.
also asked.
Yeah, it's not a dedicated supply, it's just, the water will come from Avek.
Okay.
All of our water sources.
But once we commit that 100 acre feet of water.
Right.
We're gonna have to
We're gonna
come
have
through
to
with that
serve.
water.
Yeah.
And then the county waterworks doesn't make any further decisions on
They just turn on
our
the faucet.
decision.
You just turn on the
They
faucet.
just turn on the faucet.
They just turn on the faucet.
Okay. Okay, so now, what I need to do, make a motion that we can, approve, 8B2, approving the amended and restated MOU with Los Angeles County Waterworks District 40.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Justin Lane,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes.
Shelley Sorsabel.
Yes. Thank you, Director Donato. Item number 9, old business. None? Thank you. Item number 10, General Manager's report.
Yes, we're going to have Tom Barnes, our Water Resources Manager, is going to provide you with a initial presentation of the governor's water portfolio.
Hi, Tom.
Good evening,
Good evening.
members of the board. Good to see you all. As Dwayne mentioned, I'll be giving an update as Water Resource Manager, been charged with giving an update on the governor's new water resilience portfolio. So this is just an update, just for information, no action needed tonight. Here's the document itself. It's not too bad a reading, so I read through it, and I'll just give an overview, and if you have any questions, please stop me along the way. Within the portfolio, we're going to see last year floods, deeper droughts, tougher temperatures. That's what they claim. And this is part of what's driving this resilience portfolio being developed for the state. There are a lot of questions I had and others had, so I put those together with some answers. And again, if you have any further questions, please let me know. This is what it looks like. It is in draft form at this time. One of the first things that people were asking was what action did Governor Newsom take that drove this development of this document. In April of last year, he did direct a preparation of the water resilience portfolio. He got together with 3 of the state agencies, the Natural Resources Agency, California Environmental Protection Agency, and California's Department of Food and Agriculture, and he charged them with developing this document. Why does the state need a water resilience portfolio? The answer is to help California cope with some altered precipitation patterns. We've been seeing that even more recently after the droughts, and then now with additional flooding, but also to magnify the risk due to climate change. This is something that's mentioned quite a bit throughout the document, is managing climate change. So that, of course, includes extreme droughts and floods, rising temperatures, shrinking snowpack, declining fish populations, and aging infrastructure. Also, too, the document does talk about the need for California's communities, economies, environments to be looked at through the 21st century. They're projecting an additional 10 million residents in California by 2050. Because of that, we will continue to see severely depleted groundwater basins. Some areas of California, smaller communities, have unsafe drinking water, so that's a concern that's developed and brought up in the portfolio. Also, uncertain water supplies for our cities and agriculture. Also, too, the state really needs opportunities to build resilience and leverage past investments, to take those investments that have already been made by agencies such as Avek and use those to their advantage, and to meet multiple objectives. Another question is, what are the elements or parts of the portfolio? The governor has ordered basically 7 principles that he wants the water agencies to look at. First one is support projects with multiple benefit, meeting several needs at one time. The other is to use natural infrastructure such as forests or floodplains, specifically in Northern California. Use those as part of the work that people do. Embracing innovation, new technologies. He talks quite a bit about new technology, using what we can to help with water supply. Encourage regional approaches among water users. Examine successful models all over the world, including Australia and some other areas, Africa. Also integrating investment policies and programs across state governments. He also would like one of the principles is to strengthen partnerships with the state and regional agencies. That's something that's been lacking somewhat, is that connection between regions like Antelope Valley and the state itself. I put this map on here because I thought it was very interesting, because it's something I always kind of knew was true, but to see it in graphical form is kind of interesting. What this shows is the coefficient of variance of total precipitation all across the United States. And you'll notice on the eastern coast and the Midwest areas, the coefficient of variation, the precipitation is pretty much predictable. In the east, it's very predictable, fairly predictable in the Midwest. But look where you get, and as you get into California, it's all over the map, literally. It's all over the place as far as predictability. And we always knew that here in California, but to see it on a map was pretty impressive to me. So I'm glad that the group that got together, they studied this, and this is what they came up with. And they saw that there is quite a variation in precipitation throughout from one year to the next in California. It's pretty telling. Some other elements or parts of the portfolio are to set particular action demands to help communities. So the governor had them set actions designed to prepare for disruptions in the water system, to withstand and recover from shocks that come because of these differing years. You have a wet year, you have a dry year, wet years, back and forth. And also to adapt and grow from past experiences. Also, other actions too is they want to build on programs and policies that are in place but they also want to build some new, as I mentioned, they want to get together more of the regions with the state to make sure that they're building new programs. They want to build, this is a term they use a lot too, climate resilient water systems. So you'll be hearing that a lot, climate resiliency, because that's what they want to focus on. They want to make every job count. We've talked about that here. You know, recycling, conservation, stormwater capture. And for us, of course, groundwater recharge is a big one. So how have these three agencies carried out their charge? Well, the first thing they did is they established an interagency team that's made up of those three state agencies I mentioned. They jumped in a helicopter, flew all around California, and they looked at all the water systems, and they inventoried everything. They inventoried all the assets that each of the key aspects and water supply assets that different regions have. They split them up into regions. We're part of the South Lahontan region, so they looked at our region as well. They solicited broad input from the tribes, agencies, individuals, groups, leaders, all in California. They assessed project future water needs as well, and that kind of goes along with predicting what water use is going to be needed. They also anticipated climate-driven impacts on water systems. So they looked at what they're anticipating for climate change impacts. Finally, on January 3rd, earlier this month, the draft water resilience portfolio was released for final review. So Wade Crowfoot, he helps head up this group that's putting this together. And he says this draft portfolio has been shaped to provide tools to local and regional entities to continue building resilience and to encourage collaboration within and across regions. So, hasn't this been done before? Well, I've been doing this for about 15 years now, and I've seen it before, and I know you guys have seen it before. We've gone through this before with Governor Brown. Newsom's administration, he says, well, we're not going to throw out Governor Brown's work. We're going to simply work to build on that previous work. And, the California Water Action Plan was put together in 2014. It was updated in 2016. This is the plan that talks about, you might have your friends asking you, what's the deal with 50 gallons per day? I've had 3 friends ask me that in the last 2 weeks. And I said, well, that came from actually Governor Brown's water plan. Basic conservation by 2025. So that people are only using, 55, and it's going to go down to 52 gallons per day in the household. So Newsom wants to build on this. He says the portfolio will take advantage of new data, lessons learned, which a lot of that came through the drought years we had. He does want to reassess priorities from Brown's Water Action Plan. He wants to identify potential new priorities for the Newsom administration. He also wants to identify ways to improve integration across state agencies to implement priorities. I kind of mentioned that earlier. So it's a continuation of things that have been done before, but you could say it's a Brown Water Action Plan 2.0, I guess. So what does it mean for the Delta tunnels? They did want to mention the Delta tunnels in the document, so they did want to make sure that they expressed Governor Newsom's feeling about the tunnels. Tunnel actually is what he wants. He wants a single tunnel, lower capacity. And so that is mentioned in the document that he is advancing through this portfolio. He wants to advance the smaller capacity single tunnel design. Also protecting key statewide water sources from the levee collapse caused by flooding earthquake. So it is mentioned in it. They don't dwell on it too much, but it is mentioned in there a few places. Okay, what specific actions does the portfolio recommend for California agencies? And this is where the details come in. The draft portfolio includes about 133 detailed actions that are recommended for these different water agencies in California. There's 4 broad categories. The first one is to maintain and diversify water supplies. So the state continues to help, is to continue to help regions reduce reliance on just one source, for example, groundwater. They want them to enable flexibility as conditions change. Diversification will look different in each region based on water availability. So that's the reason why they went through and all of California and assessed the different regions. They want to know where people are getting the water from. Also, to strengthen water security and reduce pressure on the state river system. I pulled out a few of the ones that I believe, AVEC might be more interested in. Let's see what we have here. First, there in section 3, it says help regions secure groundwater supplies by supporting the transition to sustainable use. Well, then it talks about exploring ways to further streamline groundwater recharge and banking efforts. So there's going to be an effort to help places and agencies like AVEC to streamline groundwater banking. You notice too in section 3.5 says make funding available for groundwater recharge projects with multiple benefits. So the promise is that we will hopefully see more funding to state agencies and possibly through federal. The second section is about protecting and enhancing natural ecosystems. State leadership is to help restore health of the state's river system and fish and wildlife, and they're also to affect standard setting. Standard setting, continued investment in some more adaptive, holistic environmental management. A lot of this is being done, but there are certain agencies like the Public Policy Institute of California, they're a nonpartisan, non-profit organization that looks at different politics and different even water issues in California. And they believe that these issues, the river systems, the fish, the wildlife, is what they call fiscal orphans. They basically have been left out of funding. They have not been funded enough, and so they are happy to see these type of items being stressed in the portfolio. So the next thing that the portfolio recommends is to build connections, which means improving physical infrastructure to store, move, share water easier. More flexibility, integration of water management through shared use of science, data, technology. Again, a lot of talk about new technologies. Some of the things that we might be interested in: modernization, inter-regional conveyance to help regions capture, store, and move water. That's a big thing for us. Which means conducting a feasibility analysis for improved and expanded capacities of federal, state, and local conveyance facilities. Also, too, the section 21 there, it says ease movement of water across the state by simplifying water transfer. So this is something we have been, AVEC has been pushing, the state water project and contractors, and we've really been working to try to get transfers to be easier. So section 21.1 there says substantially reduce approval time for transfers. That's what they're going to seek to do. That will help us out. And the last item that they want to focus in on and give recommendation on is being prepared. So each region must prepare for new threats. This is where flashier floods, deeper droughts, and hotter temperatures. That's what they're looking at. So the state guidance enables preparation, protective actions, and adaptive management to weather these stresses. Section 25 talks about helping regions prepare for new flood patterns, which, we don't see a lot of flooding here in the Antelope Valley, but we do obviously are impacted by Northern California flooding. So augmenting financial assistance and expand state technical assistance for communities to update their local hazard mitigation plans, which we are working on that. So, and general plans to meet state adaptation requirements, at least once every 5 years. So they want the state to prioritize disadvantaged and flood vulnerable communities, which we do have some of those in the Alabama. So if you were to summarize the recommended actions I just went through and of the portfolio, what would you say? Well, the portfolio recognizes that water management is still the responsibility largely of the local agency. I was looking at some research, about 85% of the money that goes into local projects, water projects, is from local communities. So it is from the customers paying, paying capital facilities fees. It is from customers paying rates and taxes. So 85%. Only about 12% comes from the state. Only about 3% comes from the federal government. So it's a very small amount there. So they're not willing to change that, or not saying they're going to change that, because they still do believe that local agencies are the prime agency responsible for funding these projects. And Agua and other water groups would agree with that. So state agencies play an important role as policymakers, regulators, funders, collectors and keepers of information. That's where the state agencies rely. Also, the policy recommends that the progress underway be sustained. So anything we're doing now to help with this is you sustain that, and it will be supported. Declare support for local and regional agencies to recycle or reuse more water. There's nothing new there. State agencies should better integrate how they collect data, conduct modeling, distribute grants, and plan for flood growth. So there's some kind of summarized actions, recommended actions for this region. If we dig in a little further, what are we expecting, the portfolio to say about this region and most regions? Greater urban growth, we're going to see projected by 2050, see a lot more growth in Antelope Valley. Diverse portfolio of water sources is required in supporting the region. I think we're headed in the right direction there. We have a very diverse portfolio. Climate change likely bring wetter winters, times to bank, right? Drier springs, more frequent severe droughts. Impact from state sea level rise, we're looking at 3 feet or more by the year 2100. Decline in state water supply reliability, that's nothing new, we've heard that, we know that. Higher wildfire risk, we've seen that last 2 years, right? A lot more wildfire risk. So these are things that affect our region. And the portfolio is pointing these things out. So what are the next steps? The answer to that is the state would like feedback from the public on this final document and invite it to February 7th to comment. They're going to do a revision. Once they get those back, they're going to respond, they're going to revise it accordingly, they're going to submit it back, a final back to the governor soon after that. So we should be seeing something fairly soon on a final document for the resilience, water resilience portfolio. So, if you have any more questions, I'd be glad to answer.
What do you know about the, what's it, 50 gallon per person?
Yeah, it's 50 gallons per person.
Is that, how do you implement that?
Well, that's what's spelled out in the Governor Brown's earlier water plan. Yeah, it's most of the things I mentioned: conservation. They talk about even rainfall capture, all these things like that. It's mostly about conservation, reducing that.
These are mostly required by retail agencies, in other words, to maintain they take how much water they've used and how much is metered and how many people they have in their service area, and try and balance it out to 50 gallons per capita per day.
I've had this question. Are they going to know, is the public water utilities are going to be in the census business? Because are they going to go door to door, see if there's 2 people in the house or 6 to 8 people in the house? Because we all know that the numbers are wrong. There's more people in the state. Some of these houses have 8 to 10 people in them. So, how are they going to know what 55 gallons are?
So it's not going to be accurate.
It's a snow job.
It's
impossible.
It's a goal.
It also is referring to in. Well, we know that 50% plus of the water is used on landscape. So, if you're talking about true conservation.
Well, that's what I don't understand. All they have to do is say we have to pull out 80% of all our lawns in Southern California. How much water do they get? Millions of acre feet of water. That's never been passed either.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that are not answered really directly. And honestly, even this document, this portfolio doesn't answer questions. It's not meant to. It's meant to recommend actions. They do their best to recommend actions. Most of the actions, honestly, I'm reading and I'm thinking, well, yeah, duh. And we've heard these before. They're very, very common. They're very repetitive, and that type of thing. So it's just,
And who got paid to do the document? That's the sad thing.
Well, I think a lot of it is awareness, trying to make our consumers aware that they need to conserve and do what they can. And that's where a lot of it's going to come from. And we've already seen it a lot in the Antelope Valley with the removal of yards, the incentives that the water districts have given people to take their lawns out and put in drought-resistant landscaping. So a lot of it, maybe they can't enforce, but they're trying to encourage.
And the other thing to remember is that is that when you're looking at the state the size of California with all the various systems, you know, from Imperial Valley and Northern California, the State Water Project, the Department of Water Resource, the Colorado River, all these things, you know, trying to, you know, have one plan that kind of encompasses that. It has to be a pretty big picture. And I think it really just provides a covered policy of, to be able to allow agencies that, in regions to work together to try to improve systems.
Tom, thank you for enlightening us. I mean, this is stuff, you know, it's good to hear what's going on out there. You know, we hear, we all know this in this room, you know, what we have to do. I was just thinking, we just budgeted $3 million for the tunnel. And I was just thinking, when you just said conservation, if you said we could keep the $3 million and pay everybody in the Antelope Valley to take out their lawn, we would only have to do it 1 year. Pretty interesting, huh?
Yeah, it's a continuing effort that definitely makes an impact.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Well, thank you,
Thank you
Tom.
very much.
Back to the general manager's report.
Yes. Okay, two more of the more mundane stuff. Northern California forecast, there was an operations meeting earlier this month. And we have snow levels are pretty high right now. They're going to be moving down as the storm comes through, they're predicting on Monday. However, it's generally dry, and it's predicted to be fairly dry the next 30 to 60 days. And as I show you our storm conditions, you can see that it doesn't look terribly good on these models as we move forward. You can take a look. Here's our, grab this here. Here's our, oops, too close. Here's the snow levels here. So you can see we're a little bit below this blue line. Here's the average, so we're a little bit below average with regards to snow. We had some really good snow storms, but they've been pretty limited the last few weeks. And here's the, we're towards the end of the month. We don't see any significant precipitation in the balance of this month, so you can see we have a pretty big gap here from what average is. We had a pretty low November, and then also here of January. And when you're looking at a dry 30 to 60 days, you can see this is our big weather provisions. And so we possibly could be coming into a drier year this year based on the weather models that DWR and the NOAA has presented to us. Now that can always change, you know, and you know we could have our, you know, stranger things have happened, but these are kind of our indications and what we have to do as far as trying to plan our water supplies for the year. So here's where our northern precipitation is. We're right here. You can see we're below normal, and we're just we're at 17.6 inches. The driest time was 19 inches, so we're most likely going to be well above that. But you can see we got a long ways to go over the next several months in order to try and get up to this level. We'd have to double or a little bit more in order to be able to achieve that. This is a drought monitor. You can see there's nothing critical yet, but you can take a look here. There's this little anomaly up here in the northern part of California where it's been extremely dry this last year. Our reservoirs still look pretty good. They're pretty much at historical average, so that has helped us as far as meeting water conditions this year. Once again, Lake Oroville is at the same. We're right about average. You know, we're right down in here. And you can see that this is our average line here. So that looks pretty fair. And also St. Louis is right about 95% of historical average, so we're looking pretty good there. Vast majority of that water that's in storage, though, is carryover water, and not a lot of new table A water for this particular year. So we did get an increase from 10% to 15% on the 24th. Mainly because our reservoirs and snowpack look pretty good. It's a little more limited. The studies that we've done show that with a little bit of rain, we can probably get up to 20-25% without too much trouble. And I wanted to show you this. This is the San Luis Reservoir storage projection. And they ran two of these scenarios on the effects that it would have with regards to San Luis Reservoir. This would be the spill line. So you can see that they're right in this location here, and they anticipate that things will move in this particular direction based on the Old Middle River flows with a 50%, this is a 50% certainty and a 90% certainty of supply. So you can see that it looks like we're going to be okay with regards to carryover storage, and there won't be any spillage that's associated with that. Now, we watch these, and the important thing about spill is that it occurs primarily when the central part of California gets a large weather event. Because when that happens, that large weather event then goes some of those smaller reservoirs go into flood releases. Those flood releases add a lot of additional supply to the San Joaquin River that moves north to the bay. When that occurs, that's what allows the pumps that are at Banks and at Jones pumping plant to increase in capacity because they don't have the environmental restrictions that they do today. So they'll go from 2,000 CFS to 6,500 CFS as soon as that river flow comes up. And so as a staff, we're looking at where those storms are, what the potential is in the San Joaquin River in order to assess, whether this is going to go straight up and end up being in a situation where we're in spill location. What is also kind of the art of this is also that the agency requires approximately 20,000 acre feet of storage in July and the 3 or 4 heavy duty months in order to meet peak flows from our customers. So we have to have storage in San Luis Reservoir in order to be able to meet those supplies. So right now we have approximately 27,000 acre feet of storage in San Luis Reservoir right now. So we have, doesn't look based on the hydrology that we're going to have an issue here. We'll continue to monitor it. We are taking water in the water bank. I'll show you that in a minute. That highlights that we're trying to reduce our storage in San Luis down to that 20 or a little bit below. As we add an extra 5%, it gives us a little more capacity for the summer months. So we have to try and balance what we have in storage with where we are. So during the calendar part of the year. Okay, so if we look at our conventional treatment flows, you can see we're at current flows 10.1 million gallons a day. This is winter flow, and it's what we would anticipate given our recent storm activity here in the local region. And you can see the 7-day average was lower, and that's because we had some looks looks like that number's wrong. So it's closer, this one was 3.4 is wrong. So we're up to close to 16 on an average there. We'll have to correct that next time. Looking at the geopurification treatment, we're doing the minimum 2.7 million gallons a day. You can see that we are exercising the bench ranch wells, and we have the west side at 1 million gallons a day. Keep those lines fresh and those wells there. It's just, we do that just once a month, every few, I think it's every quarter. We're looking at the state water recharge and storage. You can see that the east side is off, but we are doing 99 acre feet a day, which is that elevated amount that we have. The 7-day average is 99. You can see our current rate's 120. So that's a good rate of Westside Water Bank storage. We also are providing some water based in the Imagos Creek that started a day or two after the last board meeting. We were able to work out things with pumping. This is, you've seen this one before, but wanted to add it to the report. This is for the end of 2019. You can see that what this particular line shows is that this is how much water is actually banked and available for recovery. You can see 80,728 acre feet is in Avek, and 27,810 is water that we stored from Metropolitan Water District for our prior agreement with them. And then these blue lines here show when recharge events have occurred. So you can see these recharge events, and you can see that has a little bit of a different color there. That's where the Metropolitan recharged their water for them. And then these lines below, when we talk about that 2.7 million gallons a day that we recover to keep all of our lines fresh and provide that, that's that withdrawal, and that's how that's shown. So you can see we're looking pretty good. If we were to obtain our strategic goal of 104,000 acre feet in storage, which is a 3-year storage amount at 10% allocation. We're very close to getting to that. We need about 25,000 acre feet additional, and we'll be at that area. We do have 11, an additional 11,000 acre feet that we'll add to this total very soon. Here's the requested demand for 2019, and the actual demand is the darker numbers here. So you can see, with the exception of November and March, the actual demand was less than the requested demand. So we had 56,000 acre feet of requests and 42,478 acre feet of actual sales. As far as water quality goes, raw water turbidity, bromide, and total organic carbon are low. Our THM consistency from our own internal monitoring is well below 64 parts per billion, and our THM testing is going to occur in February. Operation and maintenance updates. Our generator tow vehicle was delivered. The Quartz Hill backwash piping tie-in occurred over the weekend. It has worked out very well. Our operation is currently working on developing the capital budget and maintenance positions that have become available. Southern California Edison had a power outage over the weekend. Gave us an opportunity to mobilize our forces, portable generators, set up our transformers, do a real life exercise because the Acton pumping plant had lost power. We were about ready to flip the switch when the power came back on, so we weren't able to exercise it, but it was a good a good real-life exercise on all the equipment that was recently acquired and allowed us to utilize that and set it up.
Maybe next time it'll happen on a Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
Instead of Saturday.
Yeah. And so anyway, LA County Waterworks took a tour, or is planning to take a tour of our lab and the Quartz Hill plant on February 18th at 9 a.m. We did also have a representatives from Edwards Air Force Base tour our plant and lab. You can see some photographs of that tour. We had close to 25 individuals come out from the Air Force Base, both civilian operators and military personnel. So it was a good tour. High-desert water bank updates. Our design consultant interviews took place on the 21st. We're currently in that selection process, and the High-Desert Water Bank Committee will be meeting tomorrow to review those matters. As far as regulatory and legislative updates, February 21st is the last date to introduce new legislation for 2020. We have one of the bills that's been introduced is AB 1839, new California Green Deal Act, and it states that the previous goal of reducing 1990 emissions by 40% is too low. They want to, and it's not low enough, and they'd like to make it lower, reduce the greenhouse gas emission goal even further. The AB 352 is the Wildlife Prevention, Safe Drinking Water, Drought Preparation, and Flood Protection Bond Act of 2020, a little bit for everybody, would authorize the issuance of bonds in the amount of approximately $3.9 billion. So it's a fairly large bond proposal. Our legislative activist is currently working with the various legislative representatives what Avek and the green light with regards to acquisition of those funds should they become available. And then AB 1193, which is the Delta Stewardship Council action. This, if you may remember, this was a bill that was introduced last year, and it would increase the membership of the Delta Stewardship Council to 13 members and imposing new duties on the local officials, basically stacking the Stewardship Council with more local representatives. So that's likely to be opposed by the state contractors. As far as events and schedules moving forward, we have February 26th is the Water Master Board meeting. The CP Energy Summit is the 6th and 7th of February. We have the Urban Water Institute Spring Conference in Palm Springs on the 19th through the 21st. Board of Trade Business Outlook Conference is on the 28th. And my schedule this week, I'll be in Sacramento on Thursday. Otherwise, I'll be back on Friday and most of next week. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Item 11, Director's Reports. I just wanted to let everybody know that I sent a letter out to Kevin McCarthy requesting a letter of support of the Smith Line Phase 2 project that we're working on. So hopefully we'll get some action out of his office and get that letter so that we can submit that with our request. Okay, item 12, Attorney's Report.
Nothing to report, Madam President.
Item 13, do we have any requests for future agenda items? Okay. Closed session. Do we have any reason to go to closed session this evening?
We do not.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller. Yes. Robert Harris,
Yes.
Justin Lane,
Yes.
Frank Tomato,
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes.
Shelley Sorsable.
Yes. Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.